My name is Eric, and this is the Making Musical Quantum Leaps podcast, brought to you by Eden School of Sounds. This is where we break down what it really takes to get better at singing, nail your stage presence, and figure out the whole music industry thing. We're going to skip the fluff and get straight to the stuff that works, with real tips and chats with people who've been there. If you're ready to actually hear your voice improve and move your music forward, you're in the right place. Your host, Coach, Worship.
Today we'll be having someone so special on board, Nancy Bos. Here's a few things you need to know about Nancy Bos. Nancy Bos is a sought-after global speaker and fear researcher. Nancy Bos is the founder of Confidence Alliance and Studio Boss Media. She focuses on empowering people to overcome fears and strengthen their voices. With best-selling books and a commitment to supporting students, she is a recognized voice expert. For the very first time on the Making Musical Quantum Leaps podcast, allow me to welcome Nancy Bos.
Hello everyone. Hello, Worship.
One more time, welcome to the Making Musical Quantum Leaps podcast, Nancy. And today, we're going to be talking all about stage fright, performance anxiety, and all that surrounds that topic. And Nancy here is a fear researcher. Nancy has broken down this phenomenon called stage fright, performance anxiety. Okay, the greatest artists, some of them still have these performance anxiety. Yes, some of them have been able to mask them. Some of them have been able to properly hide them or learned how to somehow manage them, but it is still there somewhere in their subconscious. Yeah, so much so they are able to sing so good when they're alone. But the moment they step before people, something happens. There's a whole lot of change. They do not do things the way they planned they were going to do them. Some of them begin to shake and all that. You know the story. So before we dive in, Nancy, I would like for you to share with us how you overcame this Goliath, as it were, and how it has shaped your vocal journey, your career as a whole.
It is possible to overcome stage fright, to not be afraid to sing in front of any audience. And I'm so glad that we're talking about this today, because if we can help our singers to really have the emotional impact on the audience that they want to have, then we're changing the world one performance at a time. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nancy. So go on. Were you ever smitten by stage fright?
I would use the word attacked. And I got to address this in great detail in a TED Talk. And so if anybody wants the details, you can look for my TED Talk under Nancy Bos. But the essence of it is that starting when I was a piano player, when I was a kid, my hands would get sweaty and I would shake. And then I was a flute player, and a flute player who can't breathe well, why even bother, right? But the nerves would cause my breath to get stuck. And then that transferred over into me as a singer. I remember I would sing in church when I was a kid and my knees would shake. And so I would wear a long skirt so you couldn't see my knees. And that's how I got through it. But it got worse. Yeah. When I got to college, it got so bad that I actually changed my major from being a music major to being a business major with a music minor, just because I was too scared to sing at the senior recital.
You wanted to avoid everything that would put you in front of people.
Avoiding it. I was making choices in my life. I changed my career trajectory because of this fear, and it got worse and worse to the point where I was teaching singers because I knew a lot, but I wasn't able to perform. I was teaching them to do something that I couldn't do. I felt like a fake. They were doing well, I will say that, but it didn't sit well with me. So when I was 34, I decided enough is enough. Managing the symptoms isn't working. I have got to get rid of this. I don't want to go to my grave having been afraid to do what I'm so passionate about.
Not being able to share your gifts with the world because of that hindrance.
Yes, exactly.
So how are you able to move past it? How are you able to overcome it?
That's what we're going to be talking about, because what I was given was a gut feeling or an instinctual path to follow. And now that was over 20 years ago. And now that I've studied this for years in great depth in lots of different fields, not just music, I found that the path that I took is probably one of the best paths that you can take to get to the other side of fear. Yeah. So
that's amazing.
It is. And I'm so glad to share it with people. I mean, I want us all to be able to do this. So worship the fear comes from the stories that are in our head. And 95% of those stories are subconscious. We're not even aware of them. The sources of these stories that are sabotaging our performance and causing this fear, the sources of those stories, they might be from us. They might be from the negative voice that's talking in our heads. They might be from our family, which I can trace some of my fear back to judgment from my family. It might be from our communities. There can be confusion about people like you don't sing things like this. And then in your community, that's going to shut you down. They can come from the organizations we belong to. These subconscious stories can come from our churches, our political parties, our tribes, our entire organizations. They can come from society as a whole. This is what this type of person does. This is what this type of person does, and you cannot cross. For instance, if I sing the blues, I feel inauthentic. Now, there's no reason why I can't sing the blues. I feel the blues. I know how to sing the blues authentically. And yet society might say, you don't get to sing the blues, you know? And then there's also probably the most powerful one for me, aside from my family, it actually is family, because it's ancestors. What messages are you getting from the ancestors, either through your behavior? They taught you to behave like this, your ancestors, or their insecurities got handed down to you without you realizing it. Or some people, me in particular, I believe that the spirit of the ancestors, the spirits of the ancestors can impact us right here and right now. So any direction you look at it, the ancestors are going to have a real impact on our fright.
Wow, Nancy, that's a lot. I have to take like some seconds to digest all you just said. You've said a lot, and while you were talking, a lot of things started to flow through my mind. First, for myself, how that I've allowed some of these factors you mentioned affect me. And I remember a student of mine, so she attends this church where they sing in a kind of way, and she has a voice that, of course, has more potentials to do other styles apart from that particular style they do in her church. And every time she tries to express, you see them consciously trying to shut her down. So when she came to me, I never knew that was the church she attended. But when we began to sing, I had to ask that question: what church do you attend? And when she told me, I was like, no wonder. And she's like, every time she tries to sing, they tell her, they try to shush her down, they try to pull her back into that particular style of singing. And right now I need her to express, but she's still being hindered by those shushing and talking down that she has received. So what you're saying is making a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Nancy.
I have one trick that is a quick trick. I'm going to share it with you in a minute, because it's so much more effective to deal with the problem at its source. If you want to get rid of your fear forever, then a trick isn't going to solve the problem. But I will give you a trick that'll get you through some of the problems. But I think it's useful, from what you just said, to know that the fear doesn't always show up as stage fright, shaking knees, sweating hands, tight breath. Sometimes it shows up as limiting beliefs, like this woman. She is limited in what she thinks she can do. It shows up as imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is when you think, I don't belong here. I'm not good enough to do this. And sometimes the fear just shows up as anger. I remember one time I was complimented and I'm like, I am not I'm not going to do that, And so it's like, that was just my fear.
Wow, Nancy, it's really funny and interesting how not taking compliments is also another form of stage fright, because I lived many years of my life refusing compliments. Like, I never believed when people told me I could sing. Until recently, I never believed when they told me, like, come on, stop it, you're just saying because you like me, not because I can really sing. Are there like any mental technique like that you employed when all this was happening, or if things like this show up, are there like any mental technique a person can use?
One of the more surprising ways that this can show up is apathy or sleepiness. And that's the fear as well, right? That's the fear shutting us down instead of letting us get excited. So you asked for a mindset technique, and a lot of us have heard of the Wonder Woman pose, where we stand with our hands on our hips and pretend we're powerful. But yes, look at you go. But there is one technique that I invented myself, but this is specific to me, and so you will have to modify this technique for you. There is a very, very famous Broadway and musical movie singer by the name of Julie Andrews. Now, do you know who Julie Andrews is?
Yeah, I came across her song on Spotify, but I really cannot place where I know her, but she sounds like really familiar.
She was in Sound of Music and lots of old musicals. So Julie Andrews is Dame Julie Andrews from England, and she's always quite put together. So my method is, when this is especially useful still if I'm singing at a funeral where I'm crying, I say, what would Julie Andrews do? And the minute I say, what would Julie Andrews do, I can go from this to...
Wow, like now that's a quick one. That's a quick one.
Bring it. So that's my quick method. But really, the thing that we need to do is we need to move into, the actual techniques of getting rid of the fear completely. But there's another question that you and I had talked about before, and that is, what is the role of preparation? And this is a perfect place for me to say preparation. Yeah, getting ready to perform. You could prepare a piece for months or weeks or days, or somebody could call you right now and said, we need a singer. Can you come and sing this song that you've never sung before in an hour and a half? Right? So there's no time for preparation there, right? But you're still going to try, right? So regardless of how long you have to prepare, you have to make a mental shift into performance. If you're...
Hi guys, I am so sorry I had to cut you short at the part of the podcast. This episode was fire, and Nancy was just about to drop another bomb. But unfortunately and fortunately, we'd have to stop this podcast here for today. So we'll be dropping the part 2 of this episode very soon.
We've come to the end of this episode. Like and follow this podcast on whatever podcast listening platform you use. Do you have a question? Or simply love the episode? Drop a comment or leave us a review. Until the next episode, bye.